Hey there, rulers! It's time to throw away the fairy tales, throw away the chronopons. It's time for a good old-fashioned Gundam battle here on Ruler School. Let's just go ahead and jump right in with Eins Control versus Aristella Control. Let's go. This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, TCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for product, and fowtlibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists. It's also brought to you by our guest lecturer patrons, Vite Ramen. Class is in session. Okay, rulers, so as we get started here and figure out who's going to go first, just want to send another reminder out for Force of Will Festival. It is coming up here in just a little bit in November, the beginning of the week, and in November in Kalamazoo, Michigan at the Radisson Hotel. We still have availability to come and enjoy the event. Really hope you check it out, as well as all the side events. This is amazing pricing, and this is just a little bit of what we have in store for people, so it's definitely something you're going to want to come check out. So this matchup is very, very different than like Aristella Fairy Tales, as well as like grind, kind of aggro Eins, with Chronopons we saw earlier. So Eins is using the dragon in this build from the combination ban list and kind of playing towards a later flip of his mech, Excalibur Chrono Gear, Leviathan Chrono Gear, so that he can make sure that it gets to find in for lethal. And Aristella Control is playing a very similar kind of idea. We're protecting the wall, we're protecting ourselves, so we can flip up for a late game win condition, whether that be Excalibur Chrono Gear or Mikey Schrodinger or something like that. So both of us getting our addition to the beginning of the game, Gearification Facility, and Great Wall. Getting those extra cards, and then we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Just a call down pass from me, and then a first turn reveal of Shark of Solari. This is the kind of go-to first reveal for Eins. As I said before, it's a free card, so going into his turn, even though I got to draw a card off of Wall, he gets to draw a card off of Shark, and then draws another card, so he's up to 7 cards going into his first turn, which is pretty great. First stone there. The other nice thing that this deck utilizes more is the filter. It's going to filter into green a lot more. You are going to see that he's using moon shades in the first one, and then those stones are going to change into the second one. We recorded this over a couple of days just to get a good matchup for you. Just wanted to show you guys exactly what both of these decks could do. First turn, we're going to go ahead and see that second Gearification Facility. This is pretty good because he has that coin, and so he can use the coin to filter it into green, and then use that thing he has in hand to be able to make me pay 2. So right out the gate, he has this kind of double tax potential. We're going to do an end phase Dark Alice just to kind of, bait and get some incremental value in the control mirror, which is super important, and then try to get a body out here. He says, yeah, that's fine. So we'll draw, get some cards to the graveyard, discard a Wall of Terror, draw into another Twin Princes, Birth of the Twin Princes, which is very, very nice. And then we're going to discard a Witch of the Fallen Kingdom. Doesn't do anything in this matchup. The Eins deck does not search at all. There is no point in trying to go for stopping him from searching. We're going to do a draw for turn before recovery, Birth of the Twin Princes. With the mastery cost of Aristella. This is very nice, of course, and it's kind of one of the reasons why we're playing Aristella over Falchion. The other reason why is because we want to be able to contract with Excalibur Chrono Gear, or Flight of the Holy Sword, so that we can get that big old mech. This is essentially a Gundam battle, so let's see who can get in the mech faster. Holding Stone here, hitting Magic Stone of Knowledge. Doesn't feel as bad to hit this stone when you're playing the triple rulers because of the ability to will filter. It's very nice. Also keep in mind both of these decks are playing Fowfest format, so neither player has Origins or Horn available to them, or Horse available to them. Going into the beginning of David's turn, we're going to get another reveal. Just goes to get Bird of Solari, which is going to gain him 1,000 life. It's also going to make it so all of his Gears Resonators get to now fly, which can be very, very difficult for some decks to deal with. Hitting a second Moon's Satellite Crystal, so he is now currently up to 4 gears. Keep that in mind for Leviathan Chrono Gear. Down comes Typhon, the Asteroid Cluster, with just 4+1/+1 counters on it. And then he's immediately going to remove those to get a token. This immediately bumps him up to 6 gears. If he has a prototype Magi Trooper, he's actually in a pretty good spot here. In response to him making the token, we're going to go ahead and try to do a oldie but a goodie in the form of Awakening of the Winged Lord. This is going to try to peek at the top 4 and put an entity of total cost 2 or less into the field. This helps us grab additions, it helps us grab bodies. There's a lot of cool things we can get there. In that point in time, we're going to see the filter into Fairer Spell using one of the 2 gearification facilities. We're going to respond to that with Light Child's God's Art, hopefully to say, like, look, if you have some kind of thing here that's going to get you to Leviathan, I don't want to deal with that right now, so I'm just going to lock you out of any more cards for the turn. So he has that 6/6 Gears token at this point. See, he has that Light of Solaris in hand, which is pretty good, and he does have that Flight there. Once again, after draw before recovery, we're going to do Birth of the Twin Princes. That is the primary way that we're using this card. The barrier mode and plus mode doesn't come up terribly too often, though it is nice to have that utility. Just being able to peep the top 2 and kind of sculpt what is going to come into my hand as well as immediately draw one of them is very, very helpful, especially as we're in this like control mirror. Wind Moon Fragment. Wind Moon Fragment, I think. And then just another pass. Seeing a Dragon of Solari is going to burn the Dark Alice for 4. It's the only target because he can't target me because of wall. Calling a stone, hitting another satellite crystal. So now we are officially up to 8. We're also at 7, even without any resonators on board, which is pretty huge. This just means that essentially Flight of the Demon Sword is almost always live, which can be very, very concerning. We're going to see a gearification come down here. It's just going to draw him 1 card and get him another reveal, but the reveal is nice because it's probably going to get him... at this point in time, we probably reveal... Squirrel of Solari so that we can recover a stone. Yep, there's the squirrel. We recover a stone, and so now we have 2 will potential of responsiveness in response to a Flight of the Demon Sword. So an interesting play line that you could actually do here, you see he has that Flight of the Demon Sword in his hand to try to pop my wall and kind of go in. If he wanted to, he could recover Eins, tap Light of Solari, in response Flight of the Demon Sword. So then Flight of the Demon Sword resolves, gets all of his gears into the field. Then Light of Solari resolves and puts +2, +2, +1/+1 counters on every single gears that he just brought from the RFG into the room outside the game area into the field, and draws him another card. Because once this Flight of the Demon Sword resolves, we're not going to be able to do the mastery cost anymore. So we're going to see in response to Flight of the Demon Sword, we're going to go ahead and try to do Sealed One-Eyed Dragon to try to draw into something, and hopefully do Awakening of the Winged Lord to try to get into a First Moon is the hope, so that we can try to draw into a First Moon, protect our wall, and then set up, since he's already used Flight of the Demon Sword, set up a protection essentially for this turn without having to worry about using our Darkness Moonchild to kill the Swiftness. We're going to see a recovery and Light of Solaris for him to try to draw a card, so we're now doing it after the fact. Put it 2 +1/+1 counters on just the gears token that he has and draws him into another card. Draws into a Attendant of Asmodeus. So he's got a full grip here of stuff to be able to play through my options. Use the other filter. We go ahead and go into that Feasting to try to make it uncancelable. Or to try to cancel the Awakening of the Winged Lord. We're going to do Birth of the Twin Princes. Hopefully maybe draw into our Feasting. Anything that we can do to kind of bait out as much will as possible so the Darkness Moonchild can resolve to kill the Swiftness Solaris is kind of the most important piece here. Big old complicated chain. The feat scene's going to resolve. We see that's fine. Flight of the Demon Sword kills the wall. Out comes Excalibur, or Leviathan Chrono Gear, which is going to get to flip all of his Solaris into the field. But he's now lost Mastery. This is important. And he only has one Void Will available to him. He does have one more filter left, I believe, at this point. But it doesn't look like he has any more cancel stuff in his hand. And so we're going to go ahead and use Darkness Moonchild's effect to kill the dragon, so that none of his gears have swiftness, so that he can still swing with the token that came in, that was already been in the field, and it'll fly and be pumped, but we won't have to worry about the rest of them coming in to kill us, which sets us up nicely. And we don't have any kind of other responses there from his hand. Looks like everything either costs 2 or is irrelevant right now. Light of Solaris costs 3, Wise Men costs 3, Tendance, he's already killed the addition, so that doesn't really help. Moving into recovery here. Calling Stone with Aristella, leaving that on top. Passing turn, we're going to wait for the priority sequence after he would draw for turn, but before he recovers, or sorry, before he would draw for turn, but after he recovered. Sorry, that window, like where he hasn't drawn a card yet, but the beginning of turn triggers would have passed, because we don't want him to get a free trigger off of Eins. We're going to go ahead and do Flight of the Holy Sword to recharge both of our God's Arts, get Excalibur Chrono Gear, and say, look, I see your mech, I will raise you a mech. Get everything off the board, draw a card, and have this nice little protection piece there. You got rid of my wall, but you can't get rid of the damage protection from Excalibur Chrono Gear. And then we let him draw. So now we are, admitting that we're passing the turn, and lucky us, because that draw for turn was a Feathsing. So that would have been absolutely devastating had we let him draw for turn. But now we're in a much better spot. Excalibur Chrono Gear is in a good spot here. He has to try to start his turn rebuilding, but like we've cut him down way down in terms of the number of gears he has. We've stolen a gears reveal for him from the turn, and as you can see here, this hand is just not super great from him. He does get a free turn to, do whatever he wants here. I'm completely tapped out. So we see a 3 Wise Men come down here, which gets to recover him Eins and draw a card. This makes it so that he can use Light of Solari, which is pretty helpful. He also has that Moonshade up, so now he'll be able to use that Lorite if need be, because the Featsing isn't going to do much at this point, and he does have access to being able to use that will during my turn for something like, Gearification, just to be able to draw one card and get another revealed, so kind of like re-accelerate himself here. Before draw on my turn, that's exactly what we're going to see. We're going to see Gearification come down. It's going to get to draw him one card and get him a reveal. I imagine we see a reveal of either Shark or... Shark for another card. Just refill that hand to try to find something to better flesh out this kind of ultimately dead hand. He could also have used a second Gearification there, but ultimately I think he wants to just kind of wait and see what comes out of it. Counting the number of individual cards in my graveyard because of a tech one of that's very nice to grab off of Awakening of the Winged Lord, but also just a nice secondary kind of backup win condition here. We use the Filter of the Darkness Moonchild to be able to make black, and then into green with the other stone to play everybody's favorite masked boy, Revenant. This deck plays a lot of unique cards in its kind of makeup, and so Revenant works really, really well to that, as well as forming another way to do nice spot removal, because we do have the Ruler under contract in Excalibur Chrono Gear. He goes to do a Featsing, but that's not going to stop it because he doesn't have any additions. Lorite can't stop it, Magi Trooper, anything else. So Revenant is going to resolve and is currently very large. Plus we have a Ruler under contract now. This also sets us up nicely to be able to make our Dark Atlases later be able to produce us any color, because we can sacrifice a stone. Excalibur Chrono Gear swinging in the air for 2,000, takes him down to 30. And then just as a follow-up, because we still have access to some supportive stuff from the Moon Children, we're going to go ahead and see a Wall of Terror. Wall of Terror coming down here to be able to protect the Excalibur Chrono Gear from something like the Flight of the Demon Sword, which is very, very nice. And just to kind of set things up nicely there, we're going to go ahead and just say, you don't need that extra will. We're going to go ahead and sacrifice a stone to try to kill the 3 wise men. Down comes Lorite to stop it, but we're like, you know what? That gets a Lorite out of your hands and gets another card into our graveyard for Revenant. Okay, you have that extra will. One of the most important parts of this Revenant actually is the fact that it has Drain. It's very, very important, and it also just cannot be targeted by Flight of the Demon Sword because it has Barrier Chant. So even though we're taking the damage, this will help us. We've taken some damage. If we can connect or block with Revenant, this will set us up to be able to very nicely put ourselves out of the range of like an Explosive Gears turn. We do see another Bird of Solari, getting him back up to 3,800 after spending some will there for the Lorite, or life for the Lorite. You do see Rain of Comets there. That's very, very good against Revenant because it'll deal all the damage, and then it'll deal the damage to him, and then he'll lose his ability, which gives him stats. So he'll just go straight back down to being a 0/0, and so he'll immediately die. So a good top deck there from David for sure. Does decide to wait to use the Rain of Comets until after recovery, which I think is interesting because he had a recovered Eins. There's a world where he could have done it before recovery, but he might be trying to set it up so he can also kill the Wall of Terror in one shot. Currently we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, now we are up to 8. We're going to see a Gearsification. This works well too. It gets him to draw 2 more cards, and then probably at this point we're going to reveal the bat, revealing the bat so that we can recover Eins, and then we can use Rain of Comets to deal enough damage to kill the Wall of Terror as well. David doing a good job of kind of keeping, re-establishing after having his board cleared. Losing the additions certainly hurts, but he's doing a good job of finding ways to manipulate and use Eins even without the addition. Like I said, there comes Bat. Bat's going to get him to recover, and we're probably going to see a Rain of Comets come down here any minute. So Bats do not have Bane. Yeah, first strike. It really comes down to when he wants to try to use the Rain of Comets, like how much value he wants to try to get out of it. And how worried he is about losing a cancel war. You know, if there's any kind of like trade back and forth, you see he only has double feasting in hand but no additions, so he has no protection at this point to be able to try to win against any kind of control shootout versus a fellow control deck. So that's also a little bit of something to consider here, is like, do I need to go to pressure now? Do I do kind of what Jeremy did and kind of force out a weird play line and then kind of crack back to punish? How concerned am I? The biggest thing is that Revenant is very concerning right now, in the form of particularly that life gain. We draw for turn, we recover, call a stone, get another fragment to gain some 4C. And then we're going to go to try to go to combat. We're going to go with Revenant to say, hey, let's try to get some damage in. We see a tap down for Rain of Comets. This is where we're going to try to see that lethal line there. Lethal to the, I guess I should clarify, lethal to the Revenant here. In response, we do have some actions that we can make use of. Phantasmal Mad Hatter is going to come down here, knowing full well that he's going to die because there's enough to kill him with Rain of Comets. But we can use the Phantasmal Mad Hatter to bounce the Revenant back to our hand with the God's Art, so we can save him for later, which is very, very important. Attempting to use the God's Art of Phantasmal Mad Hatter to put Revenant back in my hand. Once again, you see there is no real response possible here. We are going to see a Light of Solari off of the Will from 3 Wise Men. In response, we're going to go ahead and do, so that we can save the Revenant, we're going to try to do Child of the Light Moon's God Art once again, because we've recharged it, so that before, when that Light of Solari really resolves, we're still okay. And once again, good choice, because you see he top decked a Lorite. He would have been able to stop the God's Art. So we lose Wall of Terror, we lose Phantasmal March Hatter, we get to keep Revenant, which is pretty helpful. And our mech is now just a 20/20. It doesn't have any abilities. It's not stopping any damage. But it can still potentially swing, so I'm just kind of doing the math about what he still has left in his hand. So we're going to go ahead and try to swing in for 20. He blocks with the Magi Trooper, which is like, that's fine. Your Magi Trooper can't kill me. Let's at least get enough for body off board before your all of your other guys are going to come into the field. Get that Dragon of Solari burning me for 4. Or burning the mech for 4 because it has its abilities back. Magi Trooper comes down again. Calls the stone. You see he has that Light of Solari in hand again, but no way to recover. Oh, he does have a Gearsification facility. That's pretty important. Which we're going to see, which now makes those Feastings in his hand suddenly much more viable. Once again, we're in a similar kind of boat where he could do that daisy chaining. It ultimately doesn't matter because they'll be so big anyway, but it is a way to get another free Light of Solaris cast off, just as a relevant point. We're going to see coin used here to go ahead and try to do Flight of the Demon Sword to try to kill the mech. Mech does not have barrier. Mech does not have Eternal. Absolutely can shoot my mech with his mech. At which point in time we're going to try to see if we can respond. Figuring out exactly how we want to respond to Flight of the Demon Sword. Ultimately saying, nope, Flight of the Demon Sword's good. You can go ahead and contract. I got nothing to stop that. You can kill my mech with your mech. It really is just a Gundam battle at the end of the day. In comes Leviathan Chronogear. Leviathan Chronogear gets to bring out the other set of 4 that he has here, because if you're playing Eins, you really should play at least 2 of each, just for situations like this. If he was only playing 1 and I killed the first one, then it practically was game over. But this way, you have that ability to flip again, which feels weird to waste, use that much of your your sideboard for that, but it is an option. We see a Light of Solaris here. In response to that, we're going to try to kill the dragon. He goes, well, I'll lowrite that. In response, we're going to go ahead and try to recharge the God's Arts once again with Flight of the Demon Sword, or Holy Sword. He goes, Feathsing. We go, okay, we'll pay for it. We've got one second Feathsing that he's been holding on for. So he wins the trade, and we go into game 3. Because at that point, or game 2, because at that point in time, they're large, all so big, and they all have swiftness, so I just die. So a really good use of holding on to those Feathsings and finding ways to kind of play through and get to the winning control pop-off turn. Well played, David. So you'll notice a change in the Moon Children on the right. This is because we are playing to win a control match. We want to play Fire Moon Child to be able to protect, have one more kind of out to the control lineup. And we're also choosing to go second, so we just have more will available to us as well. First up, we see a Shark. Draw that extra card, so we're both starting at 6 cards essentially. Helps mitigate the advantage there. We see a Wind Moon fragment come down on the side of David. This was what we replaced the Moonshade for. Again, we built this match over the course of a couple days of recording because we wanted to showcase off both days really well. And I do want to thank David for being willing to do that. So the Moonshades have been replaced by these, so he doesn't have to pay will, and it also gives him access to things like Shark of Solari, or Sealed One-Eyed Dragon, which is pretty good. So we see, once again, we saw a after draw, a little jump there because of a video glitch. We saw a after draw, after recovery, Birth of the Twin Princes, just to try to dig a little bit more to kind of sculpt the hand because we still had 2 will to be able to play around with. We see a Bird of Solari reveal on the side of David, so up to that additional will there. Already kind of out the gate, we can start getting aggressive with the Magi Trooper because they'd be swinging in for 3, which is not no damage. Or we could just kind of be patient and kind of wait. Second gearification facility, again, that really strong start here. We're going to go ahead and see, this is that let's make you use the will. Now, we see a Feasting here to try to stop him. Ultimately, he takes that back and says, you know what, I'll just use the 1 will to pay for the Feasting instead and leave the Fair spell for later, which ultimately is, it's the same amount of will, it's just 1 less card, so that makes a lot more sense to me as well. Also just keeps the Fair spell in check. The Fair spell would only really serve to keep the body of the Feasting off board, which really isn't doing much for him right now, because if he wanted to, he could just fly over me with the Magi Trooper. Ultimately, though, we do see a pass for turn, draw for turn, and then a move to recovery. Calling Stone with Fire Moonchild, hitting a Water Moon fragment. We say, nah, we don't need that card. Ship it to the bottom. Going to see a coined out Wall of Terror, so we're finally able to protect the wall here. And we're also going to see a First Moon come down. First Moon here to be able to set up what you saw before in that Justice Wall idea of I have a protection for the First Moon, I have First Moon, I have wall, I can't take any damage. This helps protect me from things like the Flight of the Demon Sword to kill my moon, which is very helpful. We swing in for 4 with Feasting. He says, that's fine, I'll take that damage. Does almost draw for turn there and miss his trigger. And sees a Dragon of Solari come down in to try to deal 400 damage to the Wall of Terror. We see that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. Draws for turn into a Lorite. You see he does have that wonderful little card of Rain of Comets. Rain of Comets is just absolutely one of Typhon's or Eins's best cards. It is an absolute beast of a card that can do so much, whether it's just manipulate the board state and clear board states, or manipulate not having to deal with effects or anything else. It's a very strong card, and that's exactly what we're going to see now. We're at 4 gears, even without Magi Trooper, so that's going to kill Wall of Terror and get rid of Feasting, which immediately kind of sets us up to protect it. In response, though, we're going to pitch this really dead Witch of the Fallen Kingdom to protect the moon for the turn, which is mainly just to make him not feel comfortable in trying to do this during our turn. We do a Flight of the Demon Sword. He wouldn't have had enough to be able to flip anyway, but it does mean, it's 1 more card for him to use on my turn versus his. Doesn't have enough there. We see a draw for turn. To try to do a Magic Stone Research Institute. That we're going to see the feasting for. We do not have the will to be able to pay for that because of his 2 additions, but we're going to try to use Child of the Fire Moon to make it so it's uncancelable. And we do have the Lorite to stop the God Art effect of the Fire Moon Child. So, does take a lot of his will and 2 cards essentially here, which does feel good. We're going to lose 1 card and paid 2 will, and a God's Art he's going to lose 2 cards and 2 will, so it kind of works out. Ultimately, though, the unfortunate thing is we really wanted this Institute to resolve so it would get us another stone and would start making our stuff bigger. This does help us, though, because it does bait out the Lorite out of his hands so that and a feasting, so that, again, our Darkness Moonchild is more protected from being able to stop the pop-offs when that Shark of Solari comes into play. Ultimately, though, David's in a spot where if he really wanted to, he could just wait to use Flight of the Demon Sword until my turn at some point in time, and then go into his turn, so then even if Dragon dies, he can just go in anyway. Draw for turn before recovery. We're going to go ahead and make Feasting a gear, so now she's getting plus 5. And has flying and all of those things. Typhon's Asteroid Cluster is really nice with this will that he's got available to him. We could honestly start seeing a smackdown with these creatures he's got available. He can make the Lorite a gears, and then suddenly it's 6, then 9, then 6 again. So that's 2100 damage just with what he's got on board, which is pretty great for him in this predicament. He doesn't want to get into the same situation he was at last time, where he kind of overextends and gets punished by me using Flight of the Holy Sword in a situation where he can't defend it, especially since I've already lost the Fire Moonchild God's Art ability here. He's going to go ahead and use Typhon's Asteroid Cluster to get 2 sets of 4+1/+1 counters on it, and then remove 4 to put them on to make a token. And then at that point in time, we're going to see that Flight of the Demon Sword. So getting a little bit aggressive here in terms of trying to just kind of close the game out now, considering he only has 1 will available to protect it. He does have, a feasting's helpful here. He does know I only have 1 will, but I do have the God's Art. That's the biggest piece that's important here. And 1 second here, because I'm realizing what I have kind of in hand, I actually say, you know what, you're going to do this. I have to try to do feasting now. I just completely forget that she needs an addition to be a Wall of Wind. So we're going to try to cancel the Flight of the Demon Sword with my feasting before he gets to resolve. He just has to pay 1 for it to still resolve, which is fine. But ultimately, though, we're trying to tap him out. He does decide to pay the 1. We've got the feasting on board. He gets all of these guys. And then we're in that position where we can say, hey, you're tapped out, but you can't swing this turn because we can use Darkness Moonchild to kill it. And you see we have that Flight of the Holy Sword in hand, so it's going to be a repeat of game 1 in that same kind of perspective. Only this time he has a lot fewer cards in hand. He's sitting on just a Fair Spell and a feasting. Does not help much here for after this board is cleared. He is going to get to do a little bit of damage, which is fine, but before he moves into combat, we're going to use Child of the Darkness Moon to go ahead and kill that dragon, so then his other Solari stuff doesn't get swiftness, so he doesn't get to kill me here. So he can swing with the Trooper, the Feasting, and the Leviathan. He uses the Trooper to kill, because it has precision, to kill the Feasting just to get it off board, and then swings in for another 13 total at that point in time, because Feasting is smaller and so is a Lorite. After draw, but before recovery, because he's tapped out, so it doesn't really matter at this point in time. We're going to go ahead and do Flight of the Demon Sword, or Holy Sword, recharge our God's Arts, and blow up both sides of the field. That hand is double Fair Spell Feasting. Post-draw. There is nothing in that hand that helps him in this situation. It is going to be just a couple of free turns. I go, well, wait a minute. technically there is one thing he can do before this happens, which is to make a token or shoot me for 4. Ultimately, you know, a token that's going to die, put 4 counters on something that's going to die, or shoot me for 400 damage. He says, I'm not even going to bother doing any of that. I'm just going to let you clear the board at that point in time. So sets us up very, very nicely for being able to kind of, we've survived the push, and now our mech can clear the field. I find it very interesting, just like thematically, that Eins's gear, the Eins of the twins, is his board puts a bunch of stuff into the field, and Aristella, the twin of the two of them, Aristella, his mech clears the field. It's very, very interesting to just kind of like have this duality between the two of them. Makes for very interesting just like mech fights, which I think is very, very funny. Calling Stone here, feeling very, very comfortable. We can just kind of sit patient on our full grip of cards here. Obviously setting up any kind of protection board helps too. We see the Wall of Terror come down here to be able to protect it. He's got, like I said, Feasting doesn't do anything here. He's got 2 Fairer spells, so we'll just go ahead and swing in for 20 damage, take him down to 26, and then pass the turn there. He does get to reveal here. He's going to probably reveal Shark just to try to draw into something here. Does get to draw then 2 cards for turn. See a Gearification, which doesn't do anything, and a Gearification Facility. Gearification Facility is helpful here because it'll give him something to be able to potentially use for Wall of Wind with Feasting, but also helps him turn Feasting into a Gears. So now Gearification gets him a card, which is very, very important. So that comes down, we say, yeah, that's fine, I'm not going to try to stop it. See, I pass the turn, draw for turn, before recovery. We're going to see that Awakening of the Winged Lord. Reason to do this on my turn is because I've previously seen that card, and so I want to try to draw into it. We're going to see a Fairer spell come down here, at which point in time we're going to use Child of the Fire Moon to try to stop it from being canceled. And in response to Child of the Fire Moon, while it can still be canceled, we're going to do a Fairer spell, the second Fairer spell. This to me is exactly fine. We whipped 2 cards out of his hand. We did use a God's Art. We're going to see if we can draw into something here. Maybe we draw into a way to be able to make this Awakening of the Winged Lord resolve using Sealed One-Eyed. Ultimately, though, looking like we're just going to let that all resolve, which is fine, and then move into recovery. We have that Birth of the Twin Princes there, which is just another way for us to be able to protect the Excalibur Chrono Gear, which is important. It does have 2 cards in hand here. We're going to go ahead and swing in for 20, try to take him down to 6. He goes to block. He goes to flash in the Feasting. But I'm like, I have flying. It doesn't really do anything, even if you flash it in now. And he says, that's fine. Then I'll just go down to 6. And now I think I do have another Sealed One-Eyed in hand here. So ultimately I could just pop the Sealed One-Eyed, but I think my brain kind of tunnel visions on dealing combat damage, and I forgot the fact that Sealed One-Eyed is just a burn spell. And so I'm going to see a Sealed One-Eyed Dragon cast from using its activate ability from the graveyard, because I have spent life this turn, using the filter off of Child of Fire Moon and Child of the Darkness Moon. We see a Feasting come down here. I say I absolutely can pay for it. That's totally fine. And then we'll go ahead and try to move into combat. And I kind of walk right into that a little bit. We see a Gearsification facility to give Feasting gears. And then we're going to go ahead and do Gearification just to try to draw a card and get another Gears revealed, which actually lets him reveal another bird. So I kind of messed up there. I still have... in any of that sequence, I could have just burned him for 6. But I honestly just forgot that that Sealed One-Eyed Dragon is also a burn spell that can just kind of close out games at 600 life. So we see the Bird of Solari goes up to 1600. We see now that he has a Feasting that is now a 600 flyer, and he's got 1600 life to try to get through. That point in time, we do still have a way to find lethal here. It's a little bit complex. Swinging in with Sealed One-Eyed Dragon. There is something to be said about forcing him to use all of his resources, though, to have like a guaranteed safer lethal rather than just trying to burn him for 6. We're going to go ahead and at that point in time, in response to the block of the feasting, use Sealed One-Eyed Dragon to burn it out of the way, and then still before damage, coming in clutch with that, just saying I just want to close out the game now. Birth of the Twin Princes can add +4/+4 to each of them, and then I just discard my whole hand to Wall of Terror to make sure it has the attack boost, and then we finish the game out there. Going into Game 3. Game 3 here, starting off just as before, getting our additions out, ready to go, and David's going to be taking the coin. Didn't work out too well from last time when I had the coin, going up to 7 cards and the extra will to be able to win that counter war, so let's see how it goes this time around. In response to the draw from, because of how this works, in response to the trigger to draw from the wall, he's actually going to use coin to filter into white to Dispelling Stone just to get rid of the wall out the gate. This is honestly a pretty smart move. Just also immediately makes my Feastings potentially dead, and doesn't really lose my card because Dispelling Stone shuffles back in. Now, this is a sideboarded game, so Dispelling Stone was in the sideboard, but it is a very cool tool for Ides to be able to use for exactly this kind of occasion. Just like, hey, technically there's a window before I would even be able to call Stone where he can just pop the wall and get it out of the way, and so why not, right? And then so I just call Dispelling or Knowledge Stone. Don't really have much to do there. Pass the turn there. He hits the Shark of Solari to then be able to go into his turn, draw an extra card, and hit a Waterstone Fragment or Windstone Fragment. You see there's a Typhon's Asteroid Cluster right there on top. Looking at his hands, probably would be a good idea to go ahead and just leave that there. He does decide to ship it. There's not much gear presence in that hand. It looks like a couple Lorites, a Feasting, a Farer Spell, a Magi Trooper. Doesn't even drop the Magi Trooper there, which is very, very interesting. Ultimately, though, just chooses to pass the turn. At the end of his turn, we're going to go ahead and do Birth of the Twin Princes, see what our next 2 cards is, see what our draw for turn is going to be, and then ultimately just draw into a Awakening of the Winged Lord. Looks like I did that after draw, but before recovery like I've done before. Hitting a Light Vapor. So now Awakening of the Winged Lord is live. So if David does tap out, we're in a good position to be able to start going into that. However, we're not as concerned about trying to hit that though, because we don't have the good like wall to be able to protect and make it so that we have even better grit hits off of Awakening of the Winged Lord. Flashes in a Lorite to stop me from drawing, but that's okay. We mainly just wanted the Fairy Tale on board to be able to dupe Cage of Mother Goose. An excellent card from Prologue to Ataraxia. Essentially just had Mastery before Mastery was a thing, and we can tap Dark Alice to go ahead and get his addition off the board. So it's like, hey, look, you killed my addition on the early turns. I'm going to do it too. Get us both back to where we are. Bird of Solari coming down here to gain 1,000 life and go into his turn. You see those Sealed One-Eyed Dragons. Very useful for the fact that he's got that additional life. Does draw in another Dispelling Stone, so he's very well kept if I do hit those additions back. Not being able to turn stuff into gears is certainly going to hurt here, especially since we got rid of that facility. He does have another one in hand, so we're going to see him drop that here. And we say, yep, that's fine. Got nothing against that. Magi Trooper probably comes down here as well. Yep, there it is to go ahead and draw another card. Gets him another Sealed One-Eyed Dragon. Could easily just pitch one of those. Ultimately does just decide to pass the turn. Call Stone. Dark Alice should be recovered here. We'll get that here in just a second. There we go. Now, the one thing to note about Cage of Mother Goose, unlike Seal of Lenneth, is if he gets rid of the cage, the facility goes back to his hand. This is very, very helpful for still making it so he still has to commit some resources to get it back, as opposed to Seal of Lenneth, which just brought it back into play. We're going to go ahead and throw down that Wall of Terror just to be able to set up those protection turns. Again, these early turns are going to be mainly for both decks, just little pokes, little kind of feeling out what the opponent's kind of cards in hand are, feeling out where the advantages are, getting incremental value during that best phase of the game, which is the end phase, and the after draw before recovery phase to kind of force out and then control mirrors, force the use of will, and then move into a free turn. But we have not a dragon coming down here, but we are getting a squirrel. Oh, start to go for a squirrel. Looks like we're going to go for a bat. I imagine this is probably going to be either a rain of comets. Yeah, there's a Rain of Comets in their hand. Just proactively going to go ahead and do Rain of Comets. This is going to deal a grand total of 500 damage, which will kill the Dark Alice, and it will set up the going up to 600, and also set up to be able to remove the abilities of the Wall of Terror for the turn. In response to this, we're going to go ahead and use Sealed One-Eyed Dragon to kill the prototype Magi Trooper. Just to make it so that, again, little damage as possible and keep him down lower, in case he does have that Flight of the Demon Sword here. And we kill the Dark Alice, and still before recovery, we're going to use Purification Facility to filter into white again and use Dispelling Stone to pop that Cage of Mother Goose. This was really smart on him. He used Rain of Comets to then essentially blank the Wall of Terror, so now I can't protect the Rain of Cage of Mother Goose, so now he gets Facility back, which suddenly means next turn we're probably going to see double Facility, which means we're set up to use those Feastings in hand to be a nice little control package. Honestly, a really well sequenced move there by David. Taking cards that honestly weren't going to do much in the meantime, and finding ways to turn them into cards that will do stuff. Dispelling Stone, kind of a dead card if I don't commit more additions. So the fact that I had given him more additions, and then also still before recovery, we're just going to say pitch that Sealed One-Eyed Dragon, get that Wall of Terror off the board, and let's go into a clear turn. Now we do still have a little bit of will there. Awakening of the Winged Lord would be nice. There's no real reason for us to use it then though, because again, then David would get to recover. So yeah, he'd be tapped out, but he'd still get to recover the will, and we want him to be tapped out going into our turn. That's kind of the whole point, is finding ways to force cards to resolve by doing things when people aren't moving into recovery, essentially. He does pitch another Sealed One-Eyed Dragon, goes down to 38, and draws another card. We're going to try to see that Awakening of the Winged Lord, which point in time we're going to, again, bait out that card there. Going to use Child of the Fire Moon to try to force that to resolve. He says that's fine. I'm not going to throw that Feasting down there. We see a Campanella of the Milky Way Moon come down here. This is a very nice card. We're going to see... He's thinking about whether or not to let that resolve. He knows that First Moon isn't super helpful here, so ultimately he wasn't really thinking about the fact that I have Fountain of the Oblivion Moon. This is really, really good card here, not only because it potentially lets me able to shut off his Gears of Solaris, his Gearification facilities, but there is which is huge to cut out a lot of value from this deck, but it also means that I get to draw multiple cards every single turn by tapping down the J Rulers. So you see he does have that Lorite in hand. He can use that to stop the card naming ability, which is probably the best thing for him to do right now, because if I take away those Gearification facilities in terms of being able to filter, in terms of being able to untap his Eins, that's a ton of value that I just stole from him, and a lot of his kind of flexibility in a control matchup that's all about flexibility. So we're probably going to see something come down here to tap it out. That being said, we still get a lot of value off of it, because even if he does Lorite the ability to name a card, I still get to draw 2 cards even before recovery, because I'll just draw for turn and then tap both of my rulers to draw 2 more cards. So my draw for turn is 3 cards at this point. And so card advantage wise, I'm about to get a ton of value off of it. We do see that Lorite drop down here. I say that's fine. Again, I'm still getting a lot of value here. I'm going to draw an extra card, draw another extra card. Essentially now with this ruler setup, I can draw 3 cards per turn. That's just so much value in a matchup that's all about value, and sets us up very, very nicely. Now he is fully tapped out here. There's a world where we try to go for, with only 2 cards in hand, there's a world where we could consider going for the Flight of the Excalibur. Ultimately, though, I think you see I do have that in hand. Ultimately, the thought is to go, you know what, let's put another card that's a little bit better pressure onto the board here and force him to kind of burn some resources and then once again come back and punish. We're trying to play the punish game more than anything else right now. We do still have access to Darkness Moonchild, which is very, very nice. And so we use our filters here. Ultimately, though, we don't really need to use the filters. I think this is a little bit of a misstep if we go for the Revenant here. Yep, Revenant comes down. Ataractia's Memoria could actually be used to pay for black. There was no need to filter here, and I could leave open a stone that a second stone that has green. It's not a huge deal because Ataractia's Memoria can be filtered into green off of Darkness Moonchild, but it is still something to just kind of be more mindful of and considering when you have these 3-color ruler combinations and figuring out, hey, Ataractia's Memoria is technically a 5-color stone with this ruler combination. I've got darkness, white, blue, and fire for my 3 rulers, and then Darkness Moonchild filters it into black. Or can filter it into green. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and I think that's probably in the moment why I decided to do it. We see a Dragon of Solari come down to go ahead and burn Campanella off the board during the recovery phase, which is totally fine. We're going to start also before recovery making some more gears, and then we're just going to recover. Calling Stone, we see another Wind Moon Fragment. Currently, we are at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gears, so we are at the point of being able to go in for Flight of the Demon Sword, which is exactly what it looks like we're going to do here. Flight of the Demon Sword, going to target the Oblivion Moon, which we say, that's fine, we're just going to draw some cards. We drew 4 cards off this card and got a lot of value off of it. Campanella in hand doesn't feel super great. First Moon, we're very clearly not playing the Protect the Moon additions game anymore because of how well he's been keeping them off the board. So Campanella doesn't really have any other good targets to grab here, and we are just playing a single copy of the Oblivion Moon. But it is at least better, potential easy fodder card for something like Wall of Terror that comes down later. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly how this is going to work. Before he finishes contract, we're going to try to force him to go down to 7, or down below 7 gears. We're going to use Darkness Moonchild here to go ahead and kill 1 Lorite. This takes him down to exactly 7. And then using Revenant's ability to banish a stone to kill the other Lorite, giving him down to exactly 6. The idea being here is if he doesn't have a quick cast Resonator in hand, we can get him below 7, gears, and he can't contract here because he has 4 and 2 stones. So we're banking on hopefully him not having another quick cast Resonator. You see, he does have the Feasting there. Which we're going to see filtered into. We have the will to pay for this Feasting if we really wanted to, but that would tap us out, and we don't know what other cards he has here. We could pay 2 will to make sure that our thing resolves, and then still try to banish another stone to kill the Feasting. The problem is, though, that because he has 2 gearification facilities with the Feasting, if we try to banish to kill him, he's going to be able to pump up the Feasting big enough so the -6/-6 won't do anything. So we say, you know what, that's fine. Gearification, it resolves. You're good. Not going to stop you there. 1 card left in hand. All of these guys come out to play. As he moves into combat, we're going to go ahead and do Flight of the Holy Sword just to recharge my God's Arts here. Not Awaken, we're only paying the 2 for it, but it does what it needs to. Darkness Moonchild is going to go ahead and kill the dragon, so we don't have swiftness. And so at this point in time, there's no reason for him to swing, because if he swings with a Lorite, I can block it and just gain a ton of life. So currently, right now, David has another Flight of the Demon Sword in hand, which isn't super great considering he only has 2 stones. If I have another Flight of the Holy Sword to be able to nuke stuff, we're in a really good spot here to be able to mess with what he plays. Even without that, though, Revenant by itself is gonna just gain me a bunch of life. Gets to swing in for a lot of damage here, and we're gonna make Feasting a gears just so we can block, so it gets access to the flying. But then, bam, 5,600 life. A really, really big swing. And with David only down to 1 card, we're in a good position to be able to start messing with stuff. Doesn't get to reveal another shark this turn. has to deal with an open board. Even if he does have a cancel, we do have access to Red Moonchild, so we can probably play through a single cancel very, very nicely. You see that low right there. Flight of the Demon Sword's not going to do much. There's literally nothing he can target with it unless he wants to target his own stuff, and he can't even contract. So, and he's also locked out of stones at this point unless he wants to tap Excalibur or Leviathan Chrono Gear, which doesn't feel great. He's going to go ahead and swing in here, it looks like, to trigger Leviathan Chrono Gear's attempt to try to destroy Revenant. Swings in with Revenant, or Leviathan Chrono Gear, which is going to get its target here to be able to try to kill Revenant, in which case we're finally going to use the other mode of Birth of the Twin Princes to give him +4/+4 and Barrier, so that he's going to get survive. So we'll take the 20 damage from Leviathan Chrono Gear. That's fine. We'll go down to 56. We're very much in a position to be able to survive. Not a big deal. And then we're just going to gain it back next turn. Not a huge problem. He could swing out, but he can't do lethal this turn, so there's not really a point to. It's better for him to just leave up blockers, especially since they can fly, to be able to block the Revenant and at least make it a little bit less deadly when the Revenant swings in. So Dark Alice coming down here at the end of the turn. We do have all 4 of the different things that we need in the graveyard, so our stones are 5 color now. Ultimately, we're just trying to get these Mikeys out of our hand, because with no additions, Mikey's pretty dang bad. Double checking the amount of different cards that we have in graveyard here for the sake of Revenant. Looks like we're at 12, so he's a 24/24. And still at the end of his turn, actually, we're going to go ahead and use the filter from Dark Moonchild to cast Heavenly Gust, because we have done Torrent. So we've cast one. This is a really old card. We've cast one card already, and so Torrent makes it so we get a different text on Heavenly Gust. We just get to blow up all of his additions. So now we get both of those gearification facilities out of the way, which makes it so that, again, we are just stealing value from him and stealing his ways to bring back value in this game. In this matchup that's all about value. There is a world where we consider swinging at the Excalibur Leviathan here, but it's honestly worse for us to do that because, again, we want him to be not being able to call stones, and we don't want him to get more outside the game reveal triggers. So just swing it in face. Like, he's going to have to try to block it because of Heavenly Gust. We're up to 2,600, so we go up to 6,200 life. So, like, this board state is not threatening at all for us. And you see there we have another Birth of the Twin Princes to be able to protect ourselves even more. And lastly, Wall of Terror. Like, so now with the Wall of Terror, we're even better protected from something like Excalibur Chrono Gear. Although he top decks this beautiful Rain of Comets, which is a wonderful answer to this Leviathan at this point, or this Revenant at this point. Just immediately kill it. Doesn't even matter if I give it Barrier off of the Wall of Terror. Just an absolute beauty of a top deck to be hitting in that situation. Thinking about what we want to do here, he's got two cards left in hand. We don't know what any of them are. We do have access to stop one cancel. Just to see if we can maybe get something better, we're going to go ahead and do Birth of the Twin Princes first. Look at those top 2 cards. See what might be a beneficial card here, seeing if maybe we can draw into something. Ultimately, we see that we like both of those cards, so we're just going to leave them as is. And because he only has 1 will and we know we're going to be able to play through it, we're going to do Flight of the Holy Sword to recharge our God's Arts and nuke both sides of the board. So you're like, look, you've already passed your time sequence to be able to reveal. That's totally fine. We're going to go ahead. Giving ourselves Eternal doesn't matter. We're going to recharge a spot removal, which is great. You're going to kill the Revenant anyway, so it doesn't even matter if we clear the board. And we're just going to pop everything. We're going to say, look, that 1 card in your hand, that's what you got. We're going to move on from there. And we also get to draw a card off of it, which is really, really nice. So responded with one good top deck with another just good responsiveness, and he's so far away from being able to do any kind of contract again with missing the reveal. He's only got 2 gears total. We're at a very good spot to be able to have Excalibur Leviathan or Excalibur Chrono Gear finish the game off. Does hit that 3rd satellite crystal. Current hand is a Lorite and a Leviathan Spite of the Demon Sword, which is just a spot removal at this point. I do flip over the Aristella because he is currently under contract. Calling Stone with Fire Moonchild. And now we say, like, look, we only have this one. We're going to assume we only have one turn. This is like the most opportune turn in this kind of sequence to be able to try to finish you off. So we're going to try to make it lethal right now by using Magic Stone Research Institute. Trying to pump as many different unique stones as possible here, sacrificing the Water Moon Fragment, hit another Wind Moon Fragment, doesn't really help us there. But thankfully, again, because of the beauty of the other filter, because both of our Moon Children can filter for black, although we don't really need it at that point, we can play a Mikey, and Mikey actually gets to duplicate our Institute, which gets us to a 5th unique stone. So we are actually currently at I think 6 unique stones currently on this board state. The bottom right, it's at least 5, if not 6. And we go for a Flight of the Demon Sword to try to stop the 2,000 or 4,000 Excalibur Chrono Gear from killing him. But we're protected because we have that Birth of the Twin Princes to give ourselves barrier in the plus. And so that is the game. That is the match. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Thanks to David for sitting down both days to help us get this recording in. Tech profiles will be uploaded this week. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying, class dismissed.